This is the most inefficient extreme reactor I could come up with. Why? Because we don't need power. We need cyanite. And in today's episode, we're going to build this thing and get some mystical agriculture done. So last episode, we ended off with the last thing that we need to get in chapter 22, being extreme reactors. Now, there's quite a few different things that we're going to need to craft in order to get into this. But one more thing we're going to need to automate is luminescence here. So let's get down a fluid transposer, and we can stock up energized glowstone in our fluid interface and send it over. And it's also going to need elevatium, and that'll give us our luminescence, although it is unfathomably slow. So we'll probably just leave this drawer limit at 32 stacks. Now, before we get into it, there is a couple other things to note about extreme reactors here. We're actually not going for power. Although we're not going to waste any from our reactor, the thing that we really need is cyanide and then plutonium, which means we're going to need to build the most inefficient reactor possible. Oh, and here for our power tap, we're probably also going to need to figure out a way to produce cryo-stabilized flux ducts. As well as the Skyfather rods. We could do this just by crafting them, but I think we'll send them into a sawmill instead. So for that, we're going to need to get down a couple of new interfaces, and this one right here will recycle. One of these is going to get a sawmill, and the other two are going to get fluid transposers. The sawmill will allow us to do our Skyfather rod pattern, and actually we only need one more fluid transposer because we already have one for cryothium, and that one's going to be for the cryo-stabilized flux duct, because we just need to fill it, the regular version, with cryothium for it actually to work. And this other one's going to get the recipe for flux crystals and redstone energy flux ducts. But we don't already have destabilized redstone automated, so we're going to need another magma crucible. And that one's going to receive destabilized clathrate and provide us with an endless flow of destabilized redstone once we hook up our storage bus. Now that we have everything we need automated, let's go ahead and start requesting some stuff. We're going to need 831 reactor casings, but we're going to do these in batches of 200. And we're beginning to run out of certain materials. This one's an easy fix though. We just need to add a mineral recipe for this crafter and have that push into a compacting drawer. Now we can request our 40 control rods. Then we need one flux power tap. And it seems our bottleneck right now is obsidian, both for the reactor access port and for Skyfather ingots, which are also used to make mystical iron ingots. But we already have a maxed out igneous extruder running for obsidian. And the only other good option is seeds, but we need obsidian to make these, and quite a bit in fact. So I think I'm just going to manually harvest some of these obsidian towers here in the end. Well, that's kind of goofy looking. And I said we were going to get some, but honestly one tower was plenty. We got over 7,000 obsidian, which at least gives us enough to request our 9 obsidian seeds. And with those now added to our mystical agriculture farm, we can add another crafter to craft that down into obsidian and then send it to a compacting drawer. And now we can request our 2 reactor access ports, but we are still missing some of the ingredients for our fuel rods. So while we wait, we're going to get down 2 sequential fabricators with fluid tanks next to them. That way we can use our tank mending trick to automatically produce prudentium and intermedium. Now we should be good to go ahead and request the first half of our control rods. And for the second half, we're still missing Skyfather, but we should at least be able to set up a recipe for our on-demand one. And that will not only allow us to request it, but also double the crafting speed of Skyfather. Okay, well, we still have quite a bit more reactor casings to craft because we burned through a lot of them making all of this other stuff. And our fuel rods aren't completely done. But when we grab a stack of these out of here, it should complete several quests for us. And we can complete one more by crafting the reactor controller. We're almost there. We just need 23 more reactor casings, and then our reactor fuel rod should be finishing up any minute now. So now that we have all of our reactor casings, we should be good to go ahead and start setting up an area for this system and laying out the foundation for the reactor. Alright, we got a little area. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a 16 by 16 base of reactor casings. This is going to take up exactly 1 chunk. And I actually have it measured out so that if I hit F3 and G, You can see we're inside of one chunk. And then we're going to have the power from that spill out into another induction matrix right here. All right. And then once we have that, we're going to take each of these corners up so that it's a total of 8 blocks tall. So we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we can start adding in our fuel rods. These are going to go diagonally directly across the middle. Once we get there, we're going to count out 4 blocks. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to add another row diagonally. The reason that we're doing this is because having these horizontally within 4 blocks of each other makes it so that the reactor is more efficient. So by spacing these out, we're going to burn more fuel and get less power. Following that, we can add a control rod on top of each of the fuel rods. And the rest of the top is just going to be filled in with reactor casing. Now, the top, bottom, and middle of our reactor is complete. So what we need to do for the sides is we're going to throw all of our reactor casings back into the ME system and craft it down to reactor glass. At that point, we can fill in all of the sides with reactor glass. So now we just need to add our reactor controller, our power tap, and our access ports. I'm thinking the reactor controller is going to go on this side, but this is not an odd structure, so we don't have a definitive center. So I'm not sure where I want to place it. At this point, I'm just going to have to pick somewhere. I think I'm just going to smack a hole right here. That way, whenever we run up, we'll easily be able to access this. And you can see that the multi-block has been formed now, but that doesn't mean we don't need these additional things in inventory. So I'm going to poke a couple holes here for our access ports. And then back here where we're going to have the induction matrix, I'm going to poke a hole for the power tap. So right here where we have our first access port, this is where we're going to put an interface. And we're going to stock this thing with yellorium ingots. Actually, we can put yellorium blocks in this thing, so we'll do that instead. And we'll pipe it in with an item conduit. Then at our second access port, we're going to need a drawer, and we're going to set this one to outlet mode. That way the cyanide that gets produced while it's turned on will get sent into the drawer, and we're going to need to hook this up to the ME system. As for the induction matrix, you guys have seen me do all this before, so I'm just going to slap it together real quick. There we go. We have 2 ultimate induction providers in case I decide to add a second one of these. And then we have 1 elite induction cell because I didn't have enough osco glass to make an ultimate, but I will be upgrading this thing over time. And to connect it up to our reactor, we're just going to use stellar conduits as they can transfer 10 million. But anyway, let's go ahead and kick this reactor on. You're going to see it's immediately going to start generating a lot of power. The power production in this pack is 500 times the normal amount. But it can only generate 10 million RF a tick because of this energy buffer can only hold 10 million. So if you were to go anywhere over that, it's not going to do anything. Now, this one is going to go a little bit over. I think it goes to like 10.4, but it's going to produce us quite a bit of cyanite, which is perfect because that's the whole reason we built the reactor to begin with. And we don't want to forget to come over here to the outlet port and filter the drawer. But anyway, now that we have cyanite, we need to produce plutonium. So we'll send that cyanite into an induction smelter, which is then going to alloy with mystical iron to give us our plutonium ingots. And now that I look at this, this is not where this induction smelter should be. It should be here. But that's an easy fix. And I also went ahead and upgraded it so that we can produce plutonium even faster. And that unlocks chapter 23 for us here, which is astral sorcery. But I don't want to get into this today. Instead, I want to get into crop sticks so that we can really boost our mystical agriculture. To do that, we're going to need to send our plutonium into a crushing factory to get plutonium dust. Oh, and while I'm over here getting ready for another setup, I forgot to mention that I added this in between episodes, which is just an Eldritch Guardian spawner down in our mob farm, producing treasures from Thaumcraft. and then they get opened here and all the loot goes into the hopper and sorted to where it needs to be. And the primary reason I did that is for Salus Mundus, as we still need a lot more to finish crafting all of our drives. But I digress. Now we're going to need 3 fluid tanks with 3 vats on top. And this is going to be one of those setups where we send the fluid from the vat to the tank, from the tank into the next vat, and so on and so forth, which ultimately is going to result in us sending pulverized silver, packed ice, and water to get cloud seed. Then that cloud seed will use electrum blend to make concentrated cloud seed. And then that concentrated cloud seed is going to need, I just forgot to turn the extract on, corrosive wilt and plutonium to produce us growth infusion liquid, which will need a fluid storage bus, and also leaves us needing to automate silver dust with a crushing factory. Now that we have our growth infusion liquid automated, we can stock it in our interface and send it to a fluid transposer with sticks to get crop sticks. And I guess we also need to grab a bucket of this, if I can. What if I just drop a bucket in here real quick? Yeah, there we go. And that'll complete the quest. And these things are going to allow us to do 2 things. One, we're going to be able to plant mystical agriculture seeds inside, and that's going to give them 3 stats. Those stats are going to increase crop growth, they're going to increase yield per crop, and it says the 3rd stat normally reduces the damage weeds can do, but weeds are disabled, so that one doesn't really matter. Each of these stats is going to start at 1, and we're going to have to mutate them into other sticks to level them up, thus leading us into the second thing, which is duplicating mystical agriculture seeds, so we only need to craft 1 of each type. Now, in order to do this, we could just sit here and do all this by hand, but I am going to follow a YouTube tutorial, and I'm going to build a seed maximizer. Designing one on my own, I could probably do it, but it's a little above my pay grade, and there's plenty of tutorials out there to tell me how to do it to begin with. Now, I got our crop seed leveler built, and this thing is running phenomenally. It takes maybe 2 minutes to maximize the seed to 10, 10, 10. And basically the way this thing works, I'm not going to go into detail, is the seeds mutate onto this crop stick. And then when they do that, we have block readers here to check certain MBT values and a few other values. And they check and make sure that it's fully grown, and then compare it to the seeds in the breeder blocks, at which point it either picks it up or picks all of these up and allows the system to keep running its process. So we put the initial seed into this crate, and eventually the 1010 seed pops out right here in this crate. But that's basically all there is to it. I mean, I could go into a whole explanation, an hour long, of how it works. But if you want to know how to do it, I will link the video that I followed in the description. Now, with that said and done, I went ahead and expanded our platform out so we can fit a whole lot more seeds, because next up we're going to be crafting them. But real quick before I do that, I want to show you just how fast these plant interactors are getting essence now. It's kind of hard to tell in here because it's getting pulled out, but we're getting about a stack of essence a second, which is pretty crazy. And a lot of these bottom ones have already maxed out, and some of these we're still waiting on, but very happy with how the setup has turned out so far. So now let's start requesting each of the seeds that we still need, getting them leveled, and getting them planted. And here you have it. 90% of these crop farms that are actually fully built are full, except for these last 7 here. And we have a ton of different essences automated. And even these ones that were the very last ones that I just planted are already up to 50, 60 stacks. So you can see this is going to be well worth our time. Although there is some seeds that I left out like pig, cow, chicken, sheep, rabbit. I just don't see us needing those at any point. And if we do, we can always easily add them. But I don't need it adding to the lag on the world. The lag isn't really too bad, but I am using a lot of memory. If you see up in the top right, I have 16 gigs allocated, and I'm using 13 of those 16 gigs currently. And it just gets worse the longer the world's running. So we're going to try to keep it to a minimum. So with all those essences automated, we now need to craft them down into their respective materials. So I have them all pinned up here. And I also realized after the last clip that there's a couple more we could do. So I added buffalo hide, or not buffalo hide, I added cow essence, which we can use for buffalo hide and imp leather. And I also added basalt essence so that we can craft bitumen. In order to actually do these crafts, we're going to expand over here to the next room. And we're going to use sequential fabricators with 1 interface each. So this bottom one doesn't actually need to be here. And the reason we're doing 1 interface per each one, even though we have extra slots, is simply because of the extract speed out of these interfaces. If we have anything, if we use it for multiple recipes, it's going to slow down our sequential fabricators and we're not going to craft the items as fast. All right, I got all the items filtered in and we're crafting. We have almost an entire wall just filled with things that we're crafting from essence. And these suckers are quick too. Let's see if I can find one that's still crafting. Probably not. Because the second that they run out, they just instantly fill the buffers again. And I'll probably go through here and upgrade a lot of these buffers over time. But at the current point, we're having one issue since adding all the mystical agriculture and crafters and stuff. And that is our TPS. We are currently sitting at, well, we're 20 TPS now, 30, 40, and we're sitting around there. And whenever all of these crafters kick on at a similar time, we jump upwards of 50, or not 50, 19 TPS and 50 milliseconds. But with all of that automated, we should be able to turn these quantum quarries off. And then if we run it again, we're going to see it very quickly start dropping. We're also going to be able to shut off some of the mob farms with the powered spawners because they've been replaced. And there's a few things here that we don't have automated with essence yet. Like, let's see, where's diamonds at? It's got to be here somewhere. There it is. We don't have diamonds or emeralds automated with this just yet. Or yellorium. But we're going to unlock those very soon. They actually come somewhere here in the next chapter. Yeah, you can see here we use the iridescent altar to craft them. And then we're going to need some attuned crystals, it looks like. Alright, and after going through the powered spawners, I was able to remove 6 of them. We got Blitz, Imp, Buffalo, Blizz, Basalt, and Blaze. I was also able to shut off the cursed earth farm here. And we could also shut this thing off, but it's not too bad on the server, and I like the way it looks. But if you can think of a way to keep the look of it and shut it off, let me know down in the comments. Another issue we may have is this culinary generator for our rainbow generator is using raw buffalo meat, and we just shut that spawner off. We do have a buffer of 65,000, so there's like almost no way it would ever run out. But it definitely won't run out if we replace it with something like apples that we're farming at all times. And after turning all of that stuff off, it looks like we're at an average of about 24 milliseconds as our mean tick time, which is about half of what we were before. These quantum quarries are really intense on the world. But I think we're going to be set to be able to make it through the end game. With all of that now taken care of, I'd like to get a couple more automations that we're going to need leading into astral sorcery. So firstly, we're going to want to make a stabilized end crystal, which I'm assuming is just a slightly less explodey end crystal. And we're going to have 3 mechanical users facing into this thing. Going into those is going to be each of our inactive ender cores. Then we'll set the user to use item on block, and we'll regulate the extract with level emitters, which completes our passive automation for all of the activated ender cores. We specifically need the advanced ender core right now though, along with elementium and plutonium to make ludicrite blocks. So let's get down a crafter for those. Now this ludicrite is used for a number of different things coming up, but we're first going to get down an induction smelter and send it in along with stone. And that's going to give us ludicrous ore, which is very important in the next chapter for making star metal ore. Another thing I'd like to get automated is going to require us to put on a creeper trophy. Then in a block behind that, we can have a sensor. And we're going to be able to set this to item entities. I guess it's just entities here. And then we're going to set the area of 3 so it can reach through this block here. And the number we'll set to 1. And then we'll filter it for mystical iron, so that's the only entity it's going to detect. And on one side of it, we'll get down a user, and we're going to need to make sure we set this to redstone on. And the other side, we'll get a automatic precision dropper. Then we just need to hook up redstone conduit all the way to the mechanical user, and then an item conduit all the way to the automatic precision dropper. And we will filter in mystical iron in there. Oh, and a ranged collector to pick up the items. And that item's gonna be shattered mystical iron crystals. Oh yeah, and another level emitter to filter this. We'll filter this for the mystical iron crystals. Oh yeah, and a drawer controller that we can hook up to the drawer. I swear I'm forgetting everything that we need for this whole setup, but at least we got it now. So if we drop below a stack, this should start activating. Yeah. Alrighty. And those will also need to be sent to an induction smelter with stone to give us astral sorcery rock crystal ore. But with that all said and done, we're going to be set up in a really good spot to get into astral in the next episode. So this is where we're going to end it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. And if you did, make sure to drop down and leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one.